I took a little bit of a holiday over the past couple of weeks. It was much needed and I'm ready to get back into it. Just a little forewarning as well, I was very excited to get back to recording, so I am recording during the day, which means you'll probably hear a lot more car activity. I'll try and edit out the tractors and lorries as they come, but there's definitely going to be cars in the background, which I can't help, but hopefully they're not too obvious. So without further ado, here comes part 11 of Don't Open the Door. The bedroom. The room had fallen into darkness again as the hours passed. The entity remained cruel in its demands at the door, interchanging different voices randomly. Its words remained venomous, threatening to pick apart the strings of insecurity that plagued Daniel, Jeanette, and Sophia. Daniel checked his phone again as he listened to the angry voice of Savannah curse him through the bedroom door. The phone remained unresponsive to his attempts to activate it. He threw it angrily on the bed and plopped down beside it. He positioned himself in a fetal position once more and placed his head between two pillows. His mind wandered about rapidly. He knew that the entity was saying and doing anything to get them to open the door. However, its hateful words weren't all false. He felt an immense amount of guilt over Savannah's death and over moving on. He had met Jeanette at the very hospital where Savannah spent the last few months of her life. Had he betrayed Savannah? No, he cursed the thought quickly. Jeanette was a wonderful and kind woman. She helped him and the children through a terrible time in their lives, and Savannah wanted him to find love again. She had said so herself. Daniel pressed the pillow tighter over his ear as he comforted himself mentally. Jeanette peeked out of the window curtain. The fog had thickened to the point where the sky itself was no longer visible. She couldn't even see what time of the day it was, as their phones wouldn't work. Neither did the retro digital alarm clock that sat on their nightstand. Everything had gone black. The fog swirled around vigorously on the balcony. Jeanette closed the curtain and felt around until she found the bed. She sat at the end and stared into the darkness, listening to the door and walls vibrate from the loud and toxic rant of the entity. Its words penetrated her heart like a dagger, though logically she understood she needed to ignore it. But the truth was, she did feel like she wasn't as good as a mother or wife as Savannah. Savannah was renowned for her ability to balance motherhood, wifely duties, working, and illnesses, a balance Jeanette struggled with on multiple occasions. Savannah's family never let her forget it over the last 6 years. Savannah's mother took issue with Daniel moving on so quickly after her daughter's unfortunate death, and Savannah's grandparents took issue with Daniel moving on with a woman of a different ethnicity. All of these things, coupled with Jeremy's resentment over the years and Alana's premature birth and health issues, made Jeanette feel like the failure the entity said she was. Perhaps all of this was punishment for wanting something that wasn't meant to be hers. Daniel was vulnerable during his wife's sickness, and after her death, Jeanette witnessed that firsthand and genuinely wanted to help him. No, I did nothing wrong. I am a good mother and a good wife, Jeanette reminded herself while swiping tears from her cheeks. Sophia sat quietly in the dark with her back against the wall. The closed bathroom door was to her left, with her last best friend's corpse in it, lying alone in a tub. To her right, some feet away, were the balcony doors. She couldn't even hear the sound of her own heart beating over the gut-wrenching spiel of the entity. Being accused by the voices of those she held dearest was torture. She felt like her mind was on fire right along just like it said. I'm responsible for their deaths, Sophia cried within holding her ears. Over the last 4 years, her friends and her took turns picking the location of their next adventure and investigation. It was her turn, and she had chosen the scenic mountain town of Eastlake, home of the Culling legend. A legend that after research didn't tell them much, but that people apparently disappeared without a trace every 20 years or so. Residents remained hush-hush about the details, and no official reports on findings was ever located. She had insisted on going there anyways, though there was some pushback. She wanted their channel to be the first to capture some real information on it. Also, the culling had a great ring to it. It was an attention grabber, and she was mainly in charge of naming videos and keeping up with the earnings. So flippant she had been. No one knew this would happen. How could I have known this would happen? It's not my fault. It's not your fault, Sophia. Sophia screamed to herself mentally as she leaned her head back against the cold wall. The bathroom. The children sat frightened and quiet in the pitch blackness on the cold bathroom floor with their backs pressed to the tub. Before it became completely derived flight, they all attempted to fill their pained and grumbling bellies with small cups of water whilst listening to the full voices of their parents' curse and blame. Alana had long ceased crying and sat trembling lightly with her knees pulled up to her chest between Jeremy and Alexis. They all huddled close together for warmth and comfort. The entity was loud and relentless in its insults, its complaints and accusations becoming harsher and harsher by the hour. They didn't know what time of day it was as their phones remained dead. The small window gave no indication either, as the only thing visible was a thick, swirling fog that Jeremy and Alexis guessed was another trick of the entity. They didn't even know if it was still storming, as no sound could be heard except the entity's hateful dialogue. Jeremy thought about the entity's words, how it blamed him and his sister for their mother's death. She had had heart issues that worsened after childbirth. He and Alexa had found this out only a few years ago when looking through old papers and coming across some of their mother's medical records. She was advised to abort both pregnancies, but decided to have him and Alexis instead. She remained on strict bed rest the last few months of both pregnancies and opted for scheduled C-sections both times. She had said on many occasions that becoming a mum was the greatest joy of her life, that being their mum was the greatest joy of her life. His thoughts wandered to the carefully placed photo of his mum holding him in her arms, looking down at him with such love in her eyes. They had an incredible bond, a wonderful closeness that he missed dearly. His mother didn't regret having him or Alexis. She loved us, and we love her, Jeremy sighed as he reached over to cuddle Alana. Alexis straightened her legs a bit on the floor. She stared into the darkness blankly, listening to multiple voices of those she loved say horrible things that they would never say. She was only 6 when her mum passed away, but she still remembered her well. Her smell, her smile, her singing, and the nickname Sweet Pea she had given her. For a few years she felt guilty liking Jeanette, so she kept her distance out of respect for her mum and to be in solidarity with Jeremy. However, Jeanette was great. She was kind and warm. She couldn't replace what was lost, but she did help fill the void. They did a lot together: shopping, girl days, long talks. Maybe it was a betrayal to her real mum. Maybe loving someone else as a mother figure was a disloyalty. Then was Alana. Alana was born early and had underdeveloped lungs. She was mostly well now, but still suffered bad asthma attacks on occasions. Alexis loved Alana. She was adorable and cute. She enjoyed being a big sister. Alana would sometimes sneak into bed with her at night for cuddles and sleep there. She didn't mind it. It didn't bother her. She was grateful to have her as she brought so much happiness to the family, even to Jeremy, who couldn't resist her cuteness either. He too spoiled her and was protective over her. Was this also a disloyalty? Alexis fiddled with these thoughts before arriving at a conclusion based on the person she remembered her mum to be, though she was young at the time of her passing. My mum was a good person. She would have liked Jeanette and loved Alana. She would be happy that Dad found happiness and that Jeremy and I are cared for. The entity increased in volume as it shook the walls and doors violently. Its demands remained the same. Open the door. Open the door. The hours slipped, but the entity remained steadfast. Many voices screamed and yelled. Some wailed and cried as everyone in the house covered their ears, unable to sleep nor rest. Everyone's stomachs ached from hunger as their headaches returned. The entity cursed them all in deep voices that sent chills down their spines. Still, they all remained unmoved as they prayed quietly that daybreak would come soon. That's the end of chapter 11, and I will just find chapter 12. Chapter 12, the finale. I hope you're ready. The entity continued its verbal assault minute after minute, hour after hour. They were all hungry and sleep deprived due to the noise. They didn't know how much time had passed or even what day it was anymore. The temperature in the house had dropped significantly and the electricity remained off. The house remained shrouded in darkness as the thick grey fog thickened and swirled rampantly outside. Suddenly the entity increased in pitch, letting out a deathly screech. The different voices began to morph into one another as they rapidly switched from one tone to the next. The sound tortured, animalistic, and horrific. A sound that instantly struck fear into the household. The bathroom. Alana sat up fearfully, feeling around in the dark, on the bathroom floor until she found Jeremy. She threw her arms around his neck as she trembled in fear. Alexis scooted over closer to Jeremy as the floor, walls, and door vibrated wildly and harder than they had ever done before. The entity continued to cry out, its words sounding jumbled and stretched. Open, honey, door, jelly bean, help, Oh my god, what's happening now? Alexis asked, trying not to hyperventilate. I don't know, but everything is going to be okay, Jeremy replied, squeezing a frightened Alexis gently. The bedroom. Sophia, door, open, the entity cried out, its words becoming more incomprehensible as it went on. The whole room seemed to shake violently, startling Jeanette, Daniel, and Sophia. They all found each other in the dark room by the bed. Mutated versions of Savannah, Melissa, Jake, and Eric's voices shouted from outside the bedroom and balcony doors. The entity let out a ghastly and loud, piercing shriek that could have shattered unreinforced glass. Daniel, Jeanette, and Sophia covered their ears and crouched down as the house shook. Within minutes, the sound lessened and seemed to fade away slowly. Daniel looked up and realised a small amount of sunlight escaped through the window. He walked to it slowly and carefully pulled back the curtain. "Jeanette, Sophia," he yelled. Jeanette and Sophia uncovered their ears and briskly joined him at the window. The grey fog was dissipating before their eyes. Within it, the snake-like tendrils flapped and swerved violently until there was none. The sun suddenly shone through brightly, hurting their eyes. Daniel closed the curtain right as the electricity cut back on. The alarm sounded off, blasting off a loud siren that echoed through the house. Jeanette's retro-digital alarm clock suddenly blinked. Daniel, Jeanette, and Sophia all checked their phones simultaneously. Suddenly they were operational and had service. The time read 7 a.m. and the day was Monday. "Babe, it's Monday, it's Monday," Jeanette cried out, grabbing Daniel. "It could be a trick. We need to wait," he said, with tears welling in his eyes. You're right, Jeanette said, looking over at Sophia, who shook her head in agreement. Daniel pressed his house alarm app on his phone and deactivated it remotely. The house was suddenly silent again. Daniel, Jeanette and Sophia all sat on the bed staring at the bedroom door. "We should try and call the children," Jeanette said fearfully. "Hello, I'm Officer Sanders. Your front door was open. We're here to help you." A man's voice sounded out, striking fear into Daniel, Jeanette and Sophia, who jumped up from the bed and faced the door. "I'm here to assist you. We were sent to check on you by Mayor Paula," the voice said loudly. Daniel, Jeanette and Sophia remained silent as they looked at the door in fear. Suddenly a loud noise and popping sound caused them to scream out as the door went flying in. 3 tall policemen stood there with concerned looks on their faces. Daniel, Jeanette and Sophia were too stunned to move or to speak. "Everything is okay now. It's over now. You're safe," Officer Sandros said warmly. "Is this real?" Sophia asked with a shaky voice. The second officer, whose name tag read Birdoff, smiled kindly. "Yes, the situation is over. It's safe to come out now." Jeanette and Daniel ran past the policeman as they entered the room and headed to the hallway bathroom as Sophia broke down and recounted the events to the officers. The bathroom. It had been quite a few minutes since the entity had quieted and the electricity had returned. The house alarm had started and stopped as well. Jeremy, Alexis and Alana were confused but remained quiet and still on the bathroom floor as they listened to the voices of strangers in the hallway. "Kids, it's us. Oh God, are you okay?" Jeanette's voice cried out from behind the bathroom door. The children stared at the door, unmoved, trembling. "Everything is okay now. It's Dad," Daniel's voice cried out. "Officer, please help us. Our kids are in there." They heard Daniel's voice plead. With a loud snap, the bathroom door flew open as a tall policeman kicked it in. It swung violently, hitting the counter. Daniel and Jeanette stood in the doorway, both dishevelled, both with their eyes sunken in and dark circles engraved on their faces. Looks that matched the children. "Mummy?" Alana asked softly. Jeanette bent down and held her arms out. "Yes, baby, it's Mummy," she said, crying. "Mummy!" Alana jumped up and flew into Jeanette's arms, where they held each other in tears. Jeremy and Alexis stood up quivering, tears pouring from their eyes as Daniel pulled them into an embrace. They held each other tightly, crying loudly. Daniel pulled back and looked at them, noticing the dried bloodstains on Alexis's shirt. "Blood? Are you okay, Alexis?" Daniel asked in a raspy voice. "Blood?" Jeanette yelled out as she moved Daniel aside to check on Alexis. "I'm fine. I had a bad nosebleed, but I'm okay now, Alexis responded, crying harder. Jeanette grabbed her and hugged her tightly as Daniel lifted up Alana, stroking her hair and kissing her cheeks. Jeanette looked over at a weeping Jeremy and extended her arm out. Without hesitation, he joined the group hug. He cried like a young child on Jeanette's shoulder. They stayed that way for what felt like an eternity before releasing each other. Paramedics walked up the stairs and into the master bedroom where they carried Eric's corpse out of the bathroom. Sophia followed behind them crying and stopped when she saw the family. I told them everything, she said through sobs. Let's get out of this town, Daniel said angrily. Dad, are we leaving? Jeremy asked, swiping tears from his pale face. Yes, you hear that, Alana? We're going back home, sweetheart. Back to where there are no monsters, he replied. When? Jeanette asked, moving strands of hair out of Alexa's face. Now, he replied. Please, can I leave with you? I can't stand to be here any longer, Sophia asked, looking down at her shoes. Of course, Jeanette responded as Daniel shook his head in agreement. Alexis quickly changed her shirt as they all grabbed the bags they had brought in with them on Friday. They all looked terrible and unkempt, but didn't bother to shower or freshen up. They ignored their hunger pains and remained solemn as they walked past the dried, brown bloodstains in the hallway and on the steps, past the leaves and tree branches that blew into the living room through the open door during the storm. They exited the house, passing the little bit of visible bloodstains on the walkway that weren't washed away by the storm. They boarded the van that seemed in normal condition in silence as emergency personnel went in and out of the home. Sophia sat quietly beside a strapped-in Alana who looked traumatised and exhausted in her car seat. Jeremy and Alexis sat where they always sat and held each other's hands quietly. Jeanette sat silently in the passenger seat, turning around to check on everyone before Daniel started the van and pulled off. They drove through the scenic town where some of the residents were just emerging from their homes. Other than a few downed tree branches, everything looked normal. A group of children hugged each other and played happily in a yard. People chatted casually on the sidewalks. A man walked his dog, greeting a woman jogging by. Jeanette looked at the residents in confusion. Surely they had experienced the same nightmare too, right? I need to make a stop, Daniel announced, making a sharp turn. Everyone remained silent as they pulled into Edward's grocery store, where 2 delivery trucks were unloading. Edward stood outside, smiling brightly with a clipboard in his hand. Daniel exited the van and instructed everyone to wait inside. Excuse me, Daniel said, walking towards Mr. Edward. Oh, Mr. Simon, Edward's eyes widened as he looked upon Daniel's physical condition. How much? Daniel asked, coldly. What? How much? For the food box. How much do I owe you? He repeated. Oh, the large boxes are $50 even, he said, looking concerned. Daniel reached into his pants pocket and pulled out his wallet. He removed a $50 bill and handed it to Mr. Edward with a thank you and walked away. Mr. Edward watched him drive away in silence. They drove the hour down the mountain, passing some of the same vehicles, returning that passed by the opposite way when they came on Friday. As they reached the bottom of the mountain, they all let out breaths of relief as they drove into the beauty of the horizon. And that is the end of Don't Open the Door. That was so good. It was such a good little story. I hope you guys enjoyed that story. I really enjoyed reading it for you, and I'm definitely going to find another multiple-parter Reddit story for us to work through because I really meantime, I hope this helped you chill out and relax, and it's